Hello everyone, and welcome to this urgent deep dive into one of the most explosive moments in modern history. I'm Professor Brian, your guide through the chaos of global conflicts, and tonight, we're unpacking the U.S. military strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities that shook the world. Just hours ago, on the night of June 21st to 22nd, 2025, this isn't just about missiles and explosions, it's about decades of tension, high-stakes strategy, and the future of global stability. So, grab a seat, hit that like button, and let's get started. Chapter 1. The Fire Ignites. June 22nd, 2025. In the early hours of June 22nd, 2025, at precisely 12:40 a.m. Central European Time, the United States launched a devastating series of airstrikes on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities, Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. President Donald Trump, re-elected in 2024, took to Truth Social at 2:47 a.m. Eastern Time, calling the operation codenamed Midnight Hammer a total knockout that wiped out Iran's nuclear threat. Here's what we know. 125 U.S. warplanes, including 7 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, executed the attack. They dropped 14 GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator bombs known as Bunker Busters and Fordow and Natanz, designed to penetrate deep underground facilities. Over 24 Tomahawk cruise missiles also struck Isfahan's uranium conversion plant. General Don Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, confirmed the strikes lasted 25 minutes. From 6:40 to 7:05 p.m. Eastern Time, and Iranian air defenses didn't detect the U.S. planes. Iran's response was swift. The Atomic Energy Organization of Iran confirmed hits on all 3 sites, but claimed damage was minimal due to prior evacuations and relocation of enriched uranium. Spokesman Hassan Abedin called the strikes a savage violation of international law. The IAEA in Saudi Arabia reported no elevated radiation levels, easing fears of a nuclear disaster. Just 4 hours later, Iran retaliated, firing approximately 30 ballistic missiles at Israel. Israel's multi-layer defense systems David's Sling and Iron Dome intercepted most, but for missiles struck Tel Aviv and Haifa, causing structural damage and injuries, though exact casualty figures are still unconfirmed. This is a turning point, folks. The U.S. has now entered a direct military confrontation with Iran, escalating. Chapter 2. Trump's return and America's bold move. Donald Trump's re-election in November 2024 brought back his America First playbook, with a hardline stance on Iran. After pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal in 2018, Trump vowed to stop Iran's nuclear ambitions at all costs. When Israel launched airstrikes on Iranian military targets on June 13th, killing key IRGC commanders, Trump faced intense pressure to act. On June 15th, he posted on Truth Social that he'd decide on military action within 2 weeks. But sources say the decision to strike came faster, driven by intelligence shared by Israel claiming Iran was accelerating its nuclear program. Operation Midnight Hammer was a masterclass in deception. A decoy group of B-2 bombers flew west over the Pacific, while the main force approached Iran undetected. Supported by fighter jets, tankers, and ISR aircraft, it was the largest B-2 operation ever. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth called it a textbook strike, but warned of potential Iranian retaliation. Trump doubled down, saying, if Iran doesn't back off, they'll face even more. Iran's Foreign Minister, Abbas Araghchi, condemned the strikes as a gross violation of the UN Charter and declared diplomacy off the table. Iran is now considering withdrawing from the Non-Proliferation Treaty, a move that could unravel global nuclear agreements. This is Trump's gamble, a show of overwhelming force to cripple Iran's nuclear program. But at what cost? Let's look back at the roots of this crisis. Chapter 3. The Long Shadow, Iran versus Israel. Believe it or not, Iran and Israel were once allies. Before the 1979 Islamic Revolution, they collaborated on oil, intelligence, and even nuclear research. But the revolution changed everything. Iran's new theocratic regime branded Israel an enemy, fueling decades of hostility. Iran built a network of proxy groups Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, the Houthis in Yemen too, challenged Israel and its allies. Israel countered with covert operations, the Stuxnet cyber-attack in 2010. Widely attributed to the U.S. and Israel, crippled Iran's centrifuges. Israel also blamed for assassinating Iranian nuclear scientists and launching over 400 airstrikes on Iranian targets in Syria since 2010. The current crisis ignited on June 13th when Israel struck Iranian military sites, killing 2 Quds Force commanders and several nuclear scientists. Israel claimed Iran was weeks away from a nuclear breakout. Though the IAEA and U.S. intelligence estimate Iran is still years from a viable bomb. These conflicting claims set the stage for the U.S. strikes. This sent a new fight, a 40-year shadow war that now exploded into the open. Let's break down the strategies driving it. Chapter 4. The Playbooks. Strategic Doctrines. Israel's strategy is rooted in the Begin Doctrine, named after Prime Minister Menachem Begin. It's simple. No hostile Middle Eastern state can be allowed to develop nuclear weapons. This led to strikes on Iraq's Asyrik reactor in 1981 and Syria's Al-Kabor site in 2007. Iran's nuclear program is Israel's ultimate red line. Iran, outmatched in conventional firepower, relies on asymmetric warfare. Its ballistic missiles, like the Shahab-3, and proxy groups allow it to strike indirectly, while avoiding full-scale war. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps orchestrates this network, projecting power across the region. The U.S., under Trump, has no formal new doctrine but operates on a clear principle: protect allies and prevent nuclear proliferation. The June 22nd strikes show a willingness to use overwhelming force backed by unmatched technological superiority. These doctrines are colliding, creating a cycle of escalation. Now, let's look at the players fanning the flames. Chapter 5. The Proxy Battlefield. This isn't just a U.S.-Iran-Israel fight, it's a regional chessboard. Iran's proxies are key. Hezbollah, based in Lebanon, has fired rockets into northern Israel, targeting military bases and towns. Hamas, in Gaza, sparked the broader conflict with its October 7, 2023 attack on Israel and still holds hostages, tying up Israeli forces. In Yemen, the Houthis have launched missiles at Saudi Arabia and Israeli shipping, disrupting global trade. All these groups are funded and armed by Iran's Revolutionary Guard, which took a hit in Israel's June 13th strikes. Iran's strategy stretches its enemies thin across multiple fronts. These proxies make this war messy and unpredictable. Let's explore another front: the digital battlefield. Chapter 2. The Cyber War. While missiles grab headlines, a silent war rages in cyberspace. The U.S. and Israel's Stuxnet virus in 2010 set the standard, damaging Iran's nuclear program without firing a shot. Since then, Israel has targeted Iranian infrastructure with cyber attacks, while Iran's cyber army has hit Israeli and U.S. systems. Though unconfirmed, the U.S. likely used cyber operations to disable Iranian air defenses during the June 22nd strikes. Iran's retaliatory hacks have targeted Israeli utilities and U.S. military logistics. Though specifics remain classified, cyber war adds a layer of chaos. Its effects are instant, but attribution is murky. Now let's see how the region's reacting. Chapter 7. The Regional Ripple Effect. This conflict is pulling in the entire Middle East. Lebanon, home to Hezbollah, is a front line with Israeli strikes hitting southern Beirut. Syria, where Iran has bases, faces near daily Israeli airstrikes. Iraq's Iran-backed militias have attacked U.S. bases, prompting American counterstrikes. Gulf states like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, normalized with Israel via the Abraham Accords, quietly backed the U.S. and Israel, sharing intelligence. Egypt and Jordan, Israel's peace partners, are pushing for de-escalation, but bracing for refugee flows. Iran's missile strikes on Israel have killed civilians in Haifa and Tel Aviv, raising fears of a wider war. This isn't just a regional spat, it's a tinderbox. Let's go global. Chapter 8. The World Watches. Hours after the strikes, Iran called an emergency UN Security Council meeting. Russia and China slammed the U.S. as reckless, while the UK and France urged restraint. South Korea warned of global economic fallout. Pope Leo XIV and UN Secretary-General Guterres called the strikes a grave escalation and pleaded for peace. The economic impact is already here. Oil prices jumped 12% today, with Brent crude hitting $92 per barrel. Global markets are wobbling, and shipping routes are rerouting around the Persian Gulf. In Iran, civilians are fleeing Tehran, fearing more strikes. Over 400 people, mostly civilians, have died in Israel's bombardment since June 13th, per Iranian reports. The world's on edge, and every move matters. What's next? Chapter 9. The Road Ahead. The U.S. strikes have set back Iran's nuclear program, but how far? Satellite images show craters at Natanz and damage at Isfahan, but Fordo's underground fortress is harder to assess. IAEA Chief Rafael Grossi says it's too early to gauge subsurface damage. Iran's vowing revenge, with the IRGC warning of irreversible consequences. Possible targets, U.S. bases in Iraq or the UAE. Israel's preparing for a prolonged fight, with reservists mobilized. The U.S. has its Fifth Fleet in the Persian Gulf on high alert. Will Iran escalate, or could Bakshano talks like those rumored in Oman for a way out? The stakes couldn't be higher. This is a defining moment. Stay informed, stay curious, and let's navigate this together. Thank you for joining me on this critical journey through a world in crisis. If this analysis opened your eyes, smash that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more deep dives into the forces shaping our planet. I'm Professor Brian, and I'll see you soon with the next update. Stay sharp, everyone.